Good afternoon, everybody. Brad Chappell here. I got the hammer beside me. Got my sidekick Dustin. I'm not sure where he went on the screen, but we'll get back on here for a second. Got a lot of people already chiming in. This is in the watch party. Got a lot of comments going, so appreciate everybody hitting that hashtag 25K Crappie Connection, getting everything rolling. We'll see where Dustin is here in a second, but man, Hayden,
What's up?
you pulled it off again, bro.
We managed to pull it off.
I don't think he has a lot of introduction, but do a little introduction for yourself there, honey.
Yeah, so I'm Hayden Jeffries. Some of y'all may know me, some of y'all might not. I'm from right here in central Mississippi. I've been guiding for almost 3.5 years now. Made a pretty good run on the tournament scene.
On there froze.
Yeah.
Hayden, actually, I don't know how many years now I've known Hayden. I'm going to say 5 to 6.
I would say so.
Hayden worked for me in my other business I had for a while, and there he is. There's Dustin right now.
Dude, I don't know. I think it's maybe these big storms rolling in might just be keep kicking me off. It keeps glitching out. So I don't know. We'll see how long I can hang in there.
Yeah, Dustin, he said he's got a lot of storms coming in tonight, guys, over in Oklahoma. So stay safe over there in Oklahoma, all you guys. But we're going to talk about some of the ways that there Dustin slips out again, but we're going to talk about some of the ways that you're breaking down these lakes and being so effective on them there, Hayden. And I'm going to we're going to hear a lot of comments and a lot of questions for you tonight, and you know it goes back to some of the basics of crappie fishing. I think Dustin just left us again. So we'll see if we can get him back. It might not be a good night for Dustin to be on here, it looks like. But, we're going to talk about Ross Barnett and how you broke down this lake beforehand. Because I know you didn't fish a lot because I didn't see a whole lot, before this pre-fishing. So you had to get it done quickly. But let's kick it off about, your whole perception starting out last week and how you progressed through the week and you looked at Barnett and what was going on out there.
Yeah, so I actually stayed off the lake for a week and a half. I had a trip to Arkansas. We were going fishing up there, and then just a couple other things, and didn't get to see the lake there for a little while, which I actually wanted to, get a little break from it. I'd been on it all spring, and it was setting up post spawn, so I was kind of watching that. And I knew summer was getting close, and the lake was changing almost every day, so I wasn't against taking a week and a half off. I went back into it last Wednesday and ran a guide trip, and then just wanted to look at as much of the lake as I could on Wednesday. I went back out after my guide trip Wednesday afternoon and looked around for about an hour and a half. Caught 4 2-pound fish in an hour and a half. And so Thursday, I didn't really want to go fish some of the areas that I was planning on fishing, just to not put any pressure on those fish. So I actually went upriver Thursday and just tried to catch every crappie I saw. Just trying to get in the rhythm, trying to get in a routine, make sure I was ready to go going into Friday morning.
I think about that lake, and honestly, I kind of misread it last week. I didn't think it would take that much 2-day total to win.
It really blew my mind too. I won it the last time that it was on Barnett, and I don't remember the exact weight, but it was 27 and some change. And so to see it almost to 30 pounds, I mean, it was surprising to me. I'd heard some people talk about the lake, and they were talking about 15, 16 pounds, and I'm like, no way. It's Barnett in June. That's a little heavy, but sure enough, I got out there and there were some big old fish swimming around.
We had a contest last week, and I don't think anybody actually hit it. We had who could nail the 2-day total before the tournament started, so we didn't get any advantages on it. But if you actually hit it last week, make sure you message me or send me an email on the Crappie Connection on the Facebook, or you can email me if you actually hit it. Now, I'm going to verify it, but what was the 2-day total you had?
29.97.
29.97. I think I was around 27 and a half. So
I was thinking, 28 on an average day and 29 if you really caught a big one. Mm-hmm. To put together almost 30 pounds, it was pretty cool.
I was pretty shocked, and like I said, I think it surpassed what I saw in the lake. And I really wasn't looking for those big tournament fish either, but I knew we had a lot of fish, and I knew it was the fishing was on fire, so I knew it was going to be a lot of fish weighed in, and it was going to be a really good time for you guys on MCC. But I got some questions coming in already for you guys. I've got him here. I got him tied down. So you got some questions on about live scope and how he got as good as he is, and shoot him out there, and we're going to actually talk about it some tonight. But got one question. He's the zero color gain. Will you please explain that? You can read that comment as well.
Zero color gain.
Are you running your color gain, I guess, at zero, or what's your actually color gain that you prefer on your screen? And I want to know, I know you use a totally different color palette than most people, and even myself, I don't use that. But what color palette are you using, and about the color gain?
Yeah.
Do you see any kind of preference?
I run Aqua. I've ran Aqua for probably 5 or 6 years now. My eyes just liked it. I stuck it on there, and I never really changed it. Every time I do change it, it looks so far, and I go right back to what I was using.
Mm-hmm.
But color gain, it varies just a little bit, but typically I'm 75%, somewhere right around there. You get any higher than that and stuff starts getting hot and stuff might start blending together if you get in some maybe thick cover or something like that. 75 kind of seems to be the sweet spot for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the question that everybody gets asked about you, because I get people that say, you know Hayden? I said, oh, yeah, I know Hayden, for a while now. But how did you get so good? That's what the burning question is. How did you get so good?
I'm going to have to say the biggest thing was repetition, repetition, repetition.
I seen this guy work, and like I said, in my other business that I had, and it goes back to, that hardcore drive and putting his nose down to the grindstone and getting it done. And it's really astounding to watch somebody come up and go through the ranks as fast as you did in the crappie fishing world. And I think a lot of the guys at home, kind of take it for granted on how much work that it does take to get to that level. And it doesn't come easy, doesn't come fast for anybody. And I think when we all started out with live scope, my first thing was I wanted to take the thing and throw it in the lake.
I was ready to do the same thing at one point.
It's very frustrating, very hard to do. But like I said, we're going to talk about this for a good full hour tonight. So make sure you tune in. Hit that thumbs up. Right now we got 72 between the two platforms, and we're going to try to bust that 200 tonight as always. I know we can do it. So got 73. I just seen Dustin. I think the storms are going to got him affected pretty good here. But Dustin's not going to join us, which I need some help with some questions because Dustin's full of questions usually. So I need some help with questions tonight. But if you got them, make sure you ask them. I got him here with me right now. But Mitch is asking about some of the settings for the LVS 32. Do you use a 32 or a 34?
Typically a 32. And I do have my settings posted on my TikTok. You would probably have to scroll back maybe a year or so, but they're on there.
But it's nothing special.
No, very simple. I don't run any filters. Like I said, I run color gain at 75, reverse range on minimum, and I turn the grid off.
What do you think about the grid? What is the difference between using a grid system or not using the grid?
I could definitely see it helping people size fish, but I got to the point I was looking through it all the time, so I took it off and just started looking at the characteristics of the fish and trying to size it off of that.
Let's talk about, we talked about the Magnolia Crappie Club Championship last week, and where did the biggest fish in your mind set up and stay at, and how did you actually pick those off?
Yeah, so being that I wasn't on the lake and I didn't get to look at a lot, we had to run and gun there for a while, just trying to put it together. I had somewhat of an idea of some areas, they typically hold big fish. And so we kind of spent our first 2 or 3 hours in some holes that I just felt comfortable we could catch a couple. And we ended up catching the first morning, we caught 2 2-pounders pretty quick within the first hour or two. And so that gave me a little bit of confidence to start venturing out a little bit and start really digging into it. And I want to say I weighed 8 black crappie and 6 whites. And so the blacks definitely were set up to catch, but they're hard to make bite. So I spent a lot of time messing with those. You should be proud of them. I actually caught 5 of my tournament fish with a short
Hey, I
pole.
like it.
We cast it a little bit, just mixed it up, really. Ran completely different areas the second day than I fished the first day, just looking around and trying to figure something out.
I know you cover water so fast, and it's I can pick Hayden off from a distance just by the movement of his boat. Actually, I can say, well, all right, I see a boat 2 miles down the lake from me, and if I give it 3 or 4 minutes and I look like it's moved a quarter of a mile, I figure that's pretty much Hayden when I see him on the lake every day, because he typically moves across an area and doesn't fish back the tracks. And I think fishing pressure probably had a little bit of a role into this tournament. Fishing areas. How do you look at some of the fishing pressure that's put on a lake?
Yeah, it definitely had some pressure, and I was kind of watching that. They would be in an area that I have 10 boats there, and I would just kind of write it off. Really wanted to go in there because the potential that it can hold, but these fish were being so picky about what they were eating. I had to be careful, even me fishing for the same fish twice. There was very few groups of fish that I would circle back to and refish for.
Yeah.
I was just looking for those fresh fish that.
Yeah. Even me Friday, I got out and started an area, and I seen a lot of guys fishing tournaments, and I didn't want to interfere with those guys either. So I just actually just turned and kind of went away from them, and I thought the fishing got better when I started out from them, and I was like, as I eased away from that crowd, the fishing actually got a little better, I thought. But Dustin's got a question for you, and he said, "What about the bait presentation? Did you feel like it was a key on how that bait got presented to these fish last week?"
It was super weird last week, and you might have saw the same thing. So we had some water coming down the river. There was some mud coming down the lake, but those fish could see really, really good. And
Yep.
I mean, those fish they would turn around off a tree with a bait 2 foot away from them, and they would come check it out. But I noticed if you really made, like, he would snap around and you would take it away from him quick because that's the way he wanted it. But every time he would get up there and he would turn off of it, and he just wouldn't commit. And so I wish I would have grabbed it out of my truck, but I ended up going to a tiny, tiny little jig. And instead of really running it away from him, I let him look at it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And several of them ended up grabbing it.
Was it like I know for me, I've seen some different presentations that I really felt that was key for me last week, and even I see it this week. Some was, they didn't want the bait sitting on them, and they wanted some kind of movement with the bait. But I've done a lot of shaking of the bait lately.
Mm-hmm.
If I presented the bait and started shaking it and just slowly bringing it away from them, and I think it's like a quivering. I don't know if that's how I see it or how you see it in your mind. But
with the short rod, I do that a lot. I'm giving that bait some kind of action as it's coming through there.
Just not a straight up retrieve.
That's right.
That quiver motion.
These fish, it was just weird how I had to do it. You would think typically when they look up super aggressive, you're taking it out of there, trying to make that fish chase it up there and hit it, but they would turn off. And so I had to size down and slow it down and just kind of keep it in there almost a little more. It seemed to pay off.
Did you see a bait preference between the white crappie versus the black, or pretty much the same thing how they ate
I was fishing pretty much the same thing. With that water as clear as it was, I was trying to mimic a shad the best way I could. Fishing some gray, a little bit of white. And during practice, I caught a few fish on orange, and we mixed that in day 2 and ended up catching a couple of big fish with it.
But no difference between the black crappie. You said, all right, this is a black crappie on this stump, or I feel like it's a black, I'm going to use this bait versus another one.
If I saw a group of blacks, I would pick the short pole up every time, just hoping to catch 1 or 2 of them before I'd educate the group. And ended up catching the biggest fish in the tournament by doing that.
Let me see. I know we got some. Let's see. We're going to go down to here and see if we got any more questions. Larry Jones, he's asking right there, Hayden, do you use a long pole most of the time? Do you ever cast? And I think he's answered some of this, but we'll let him go through it as well.
Yeah, typically I'm fishing with the long pole until fish start grouping up. And when fish start grouping up, I'm not going to pull in there 2 of them and bust them up. I'm going to stop. I'm going to make myself set up and throw at them. Just to where, you have a better chance of catching more of those fish.
I see him all the time. He loves that long pole. Let's see. What trolling motor are you running? And also, let's see. Did you catch your key fish floating or on cover?
So I run the Minn Kota Ultrex Quest. I've been running it for about a year and a half now, and it's been really solid motor. They took the Ultrex and tweaked a few things and really got it.
What about on the back of the boat? You running two set?
I used to have 4 trolling motors back there.
Mhm.
When I went to the Quest, it would pull the boat a lot harder, and so I didn't feel like I needed to push the boat from the back. And so I took one set off, just two less brackets of maintenance, and I run 250-pound motors back there.
Have you seen these fish kind of change? I've noticed anyway. Those back brakes are kind of spooking fish some nowadays.
They can from time to time. I saw it today, actually. Pull up to a stump that would have 6 or 8 fish on it, and ease in there to stop. And as soon as you go to stop, all these fish busted. They busted
Yeah,
off of it and took
yeah.
off. And yeah, I definitely see that from time to time.
Mike's asking a question here. How far do you set your live scope, and do you change your settings as you go out? I mean, I think he's talking about like when you're out searching for fish. How far out do you have your range set?
My settings will stay the same on that, and I'll look depending on what I'm fishing and how much activity is on the screen. So if there's a lot of stuff going on, I may only go to 50 feet. But if I'm out in open water and really scanning out looking for a fish, I'll go 65 would probably be about my max.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Dustin Shields done. He's letting your secret out of the bag. He said it's the goldfish.
It might be it.
Might be it. All right. I didn't notice water temperature. I noticed last week it was around 77. Did you notice water temperature today?
Ooh, didn't even pay attention.
I didn't pay attention.
Didn't pay attention. I know it got up to 90 degrees today, so it's got to be warming up fast. Last week was like 76 to 78. I'm assuming now we're getting over that 80 mark.
Yeah, it's. I think we're going to see some temperatures in the week here coming into the 90s. It's going to be a really
Friday's going to be 94.
94, so it's about to get hot out there. And we talk about crappie fishing, and I know for myself, look at all the different seasons, and you had to pick. And I'll give you some leeway on this. Not one, but pick me out 2 months would be your favorite 2 months to crappie fish.
It would be hard. I mean, I fish year round and I enjoy fishing year round. I like fishing different patterns over the course of the year. I'm working on it. Let's see. June's a fun month. I will say that. It can be a lot of fish catching, and you can catch some big fish. We caught a 222 and a 211 today. January and June.
That is polar.
And January can be really weird because you still get some cold weather and the fish can be dormant. But if you can catch the right window in January when it warms up just enough that those fish are active, it can be unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. What about, have you seen any fish that still have the eggs and spawned up?
I had 2 or 3 fish today that were, yeah. I mean, they look like they were full of eggs. I'm still catching some males that are fully tuxedoed. Catching some on top of stumps that almost look like they're garden.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's quite over yet.
I know, and I think that's what makes this lake here so vibrant and full of crappie. Is I think we have such a long, drawn out spawn here.
Definitely so.
I'm looking back to even my memory of crappie fishing, and I always thought, wow, it's probably about a 3 to 4 week, 5 week period. And now I've realized that it goes on months in some lakes.
It was a very long spawn this year, I felt like.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to me. And I think that's why this joker here is so full of fish. Let's see here. Mr. Ken says it best. He said, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow button, and make sure you hit that thumbs up tonight, guys. We're at 172, 281 people watching. Really good show. So make sure you hit that. Get those thumbs up and likes all the way up. You're going to see my wife walk by. Let's put her out. There she goes. She's trying to be quiet. But kind of lost me there. But Chad Rogers says Saddlebags has some big old fish in it. I think everywhere's got some big old fish in it.
Definitely does.
If you can just get them out of there. Like Charlie Brown's asking, do you
strictly fish for money or do I have a day job? So I still fish full time. I've been fishing full time for 3.5 years now. I've been really blessed with that. Had a lot of fun doing it.
I definitely, like I said, Hayden worked for me in my other business, and we both changed gears, and now we both are pretty blessed to do what we're able to do out there on the lake.
For sure.
Okay, just asking, do you have your brakes mounted on power poles, or what mounts do you use for your trolling motors, your brake trolling motors?
So I run the factory Minn Kota brackets, like you would clamp on the back of a John boat. Just a trans-mount bracket. I've got a piece of flat bar sandwiched in between my Raptors and my Raptor brackets, and those are bolted directly to that.
Mm-hmm.
I break them a lot, dragging them through the timber. It's just, I feel like it's part of it for me.
Yeah, that's why I hate timber. Okay. How many drops or casts do you make on a big fish before you decide he's not going to bite?
It all depends on that big fish. Sometimes it may be one drop, and that fish tells me everything I need to know. And then the biggest fish that I saw this weekend, I spent 30 minutes chasing it down the river. And it would look at every bait I showed it. That's why I was willing to spend that much time with that fish, just because he was so curious, and he really wanted to bite.
What do you think was the factor why that fish didn't bite?
I don't know. He was 24 foot deep, and he never came up. He was just cruising. And I know he could see, because every time I put something down there, he would look, but he would get lazy as soon as he turned his head up, and he would turn it right back down and keep running.
I know. I remember Hayden and I both were guiding in an area this spring, and man, I had this giant that I was chasing, and I understand why I didn't want to come mess with it, because I done messed with it for about 30 minutes, but I was wanting to see if somebody else could actually catch this fish, because it was the same way. I mean, it's kind of crazy, some of these big educated fish, and I think they're getting educated in some of these lakes. It would nose up to it and nose right back down and keep swimming and take me in circles. And I think people from a distance thought I was pretty crazy, because I was just spinning around chasing this fish all over the place. But it's crazy how they'll look up and something about them just says it's not right.
It doesn't look right to them.
And I think of big giant deer and uh, these old turkeys that we chase in the woods, and these big crappie that have seen a lot of baits and got a lot of education. I just don't know if they're catchable, some of them.
My thoughts on a big fish not biting is, for, let's say, 7 years, that fish is eating one thing. Typically, a white crappie, let's say a white crappie, he primarily eats shad. And so for 7 years, he's looked up, and there's what he eats. And then you come by him and you show him a bait, and he looks up, and as soon as he looks up, it's not what he's eaten for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that fish is done with it.
Yeah. Do you use side scan it very much?
I run a Gen 3 Helix 12 Humminbird, and I'll use it from time to time. Not near as much as I probably used to, but there's still times where I'll, if I'm looking for brush or looking for some kind of cover, I'll turn it on and cover a little bit more ground.
Plastics or hair jigs?
I find myself fishing a lot of hair during the winter, but it seems like post spawn going into summer, I take the hair jig off for some reason. I don't know if it's just a personal thing or if the fish turn towards plastic. I'm not really sure, but most of the summer I'm always fishing plastics.
Yeah, I like when it's really cold and I feel like a bait's kind of sit in a fish's face. I like hair jig.
Mm-hmm.
And, if I feel like a movement, I want plastic to kind of come into play. And it's all about personal preference. And
For sure.
What would be, in your mind and your opinion, the most 3 keys of catching fish? Would it be the color, the profile, or how would you rank every one of those big factors?
The biggest thing for me is contrast, not color.
Mm-hmm.
Those colors change colors underwater. Those fish are seeing it differently than you're putting it down there. And so I'm going to say contrast is the biggest one. You can't show that fish too much, but you have to show him enough to where he can see it and recognize that it's something he wants to eat. Profile, I fish small a lot, but then you have to go big sometimes. If those fish are really feeding, really gorging, they're eating big baits, you've got to show them a big bait.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Hey, do you ever fish Arkansas River or any rivers, or what were you looking for this time of year and determined to catch a 3-pounder?
I have never fished the Arkansas River. I've spent a lot of time on the Ouachita River. I've been on the Red River a couple times. I fished
Pearl
the
River.
Upper Pearl River a lot. I love going up there when the current's moving and getting in the slack water. And most of the time, that's what I'm looking for. If that river's moving, you've got to find some kind of eddy or some kind of break, some kind of slack water for those fish to hang out in.
We know you know this too, and I would know
I
it
don't
as
know
well.
the total number.
God, too many.
I
How
don't
about
know the total
or not
number.
enough? Not
I
enough.
don't know. We'll call it not enough.
Probably not enough. The hardest lake you have fished?
I'm going to think about that. Probably Grenada. Those fish up there are pretty sharp. Yeah, I'm going to say that's a feast or famine lake. It can be really good, but it can also humble you very fast. I've had a lot of great success on Grenada, but I've had some days that really made you sit back and just scratch your head a little bit.
Here's a good one. In a tournament, when searching for fish, how fast are you moving? How far are you looking? And how fast are you moving?
I'm looking 50 to 65 feet, and I'm moving, depending on what I'm fishing and how thick it is, but I'm going to say 2.8 to 3.2 miles an hour.
3 point what?
2.
Good gracious. What about scent? Do you ever use scent?
Very rarely. I'll put it on and try it and try to make it work, and then maybe think it works here and doesn't work here, and I'm not really sure. I mean, a crappie has nostrils.
Yeah.
I will say that. And so I feel like they can smell. I don't know.
Definitely. I think sometimes in that dirty water would help them. The smallest bait you've used, he's been using a 1/80th. Works really well, just hard to button them up on that small hook.
So I went to Lake Cumberland and fished the national championship a couple of years ago, and it was basically tap water, super clear, way out of my comfort zone, and I ended up fishing a 64th-ounce jig with no weight above it for that whole tournament.
Good God. How deep were they?
20 to 30 feet.
It would take about 3
It
4
was
minutes.
taking forever. And you were just feeding line and feeding line and feeding line and letting it slowly fall. But if you fell one down in there fast, you would educate the school quick, and they wouldn't buy it.
Okay. Chad Rogers, which Chad, I've seen your post this week. And first off, I want to say congratulations on a new endeavor for yourself. And
For sure.
You'll definitely be missed by all the different crappie guys out there, I'm sure, in the tournaments and all your funny online stuff that you get to do as well. But he's asking, since your goals have been conquered on all tournaments, what would be your goals?
I don't know. I spent the last couple of years just trying to enjoy life a little bit. I spent 2 years on the road where I was out of town 25 to 30 weeks a year, and it was just super busy. And I've enjoyed a little break.
Absolutely. Have you ever fished Lake Chico in Arkansas? Tony Van Norman.
I've seen Chico 100 times, but I've never put a boat in it.
No, you would like it.
I've always wanted to, and one day when I have my boat behind me, I'm going to stop and fish it.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, keep them coming. He's answering, so you better take advantage of it. Do you run your trolling motor batteries Imperial or Series?
So I have 2 trolling motor batteries, 2 36-volt batteries on separate breakers, and I can alternate back and forth between the two.
What are the amp hours and everything of the nuts and bolts of those batteries? Because I know you run them hard.
I have a 36-volt 100 amp hour, and then I have a 36-volt 50 amp hour, and that'll barely do 8 hours of fishing.
Let's see. I guess we'll go back here. Jason's got a good question.
That. Thoughts on painted head or lead?
Yeah.
I like a lead head a lot of times. I don't know. I don't know. I like a lead head.
One thing I have a problem with lead head sometimes is it seems like the eyelids, if you don't watch them, they won't.
They'll have a gap in them, and that line
gap.
can slip through there for sure. I just feel like it's easier to change colors with a jig than try to change a head. Say you have an orange head and you want to go black. I just feel like it complicates it a little bit too much for me.
When you're using a painted head, do you like separating the body from the
Like two different colors.
two different color schemes.
Yeah, I'll do that a lot. Very rarely am I going to fish the same color head as the body that I'm fishing.
I know last week, and maybe just what I was fishing, I thought a white head and a dark body was key for me last week, and just something that I came across. Let's see. I'll go back to get this one here real quick. What is your go-to hook size on a 30-second hair? J hook or sickle? That's always a good question.
I fish a number 4 a lot. Always a J hook. I'm not a sickle.
I'm not a sickler.
Not a sickler.
What are the length of your long rod and your casting rods?
So my long pole is a 15-foot. My arm doesn't like holding anything longer than that anymore. And then on a casting rod, I throw a 7-foot a lot of times. I feel like I can really whip a light bait with that longer pole.
86-16 or 16-43?
I'm still kind of torn on this one. I run the 86-16, been running it for 3 or 4 years now. The 1643 is the exact same unit, except it has new software in it, and they don't have anything to backdate a 1643 with.
Was that the only really difference, is it?
If mine broke tomorrow, I would buy a 1643.
What is your favorite lake to fish?
Probably Barnett.
Why would Barnett be?
I don't know. There's a lot of variety in there. You get to see a lot of different things over the course of a year. It's got really good fish in it, and it's got a lot of fish in it. It's right here at the house, so
that makes it convenient too.
That's right.
Yeah,
I had a lot of fun on Lake Fork. Anytime I've been to Texas, I've had a lot of fun. Those lakes over there, they produce fish and produce some really big fish.
What would be your lake that you still got on your radar that you say, hey, I've got to get there one day?
I'm going to go to California in January and try that. Clear Lake.
Clear
just
Lake.
To see it.
You ever been to St. John?
Never have, but I'd like to make that trip one day as well.
I'd like to do that one too. I'd like to do Clear Lake. Those two would be right on the top of my list as well. Let's see.
Break down the lake before you hit the water.
There you go.
You've got to take all things into consideration. Time of year, what the fish are doing as far as spawn, post spawn. You're looking at where the fish should be before you ever get there, and then you're going to have to go from there once you do get there. I'm going to say you can take your home lake and study it well enough that you can replicate that on a new body of water. Crappie typically seem to do the same things for the most part. Now, if you're talking black crappie versus white crappie, that's two completely different things. Clear water versus muddy, that's two completely different things. But it just depends, really. Depends on the lake.
Clinch knot or loop knot?
So I tie a polymer pretty much religiously, even casting, all of that. Very rarely do I tie a loop knot, and I don't because I can remember probably 7 or 8 years ago, me and Dad were spider rigging. We had just started crappie fishing and didn't really even know what we were doing. And we got into some fish, and we were tying a loop knot, and I bet we broke off 4 or 5 2.5-pound fish that day. And ever since then, it's been a polymer.
Let's see. Make sure I ain't missing anybody out. I know there's a lot coming on the screen right now. 247 likes, guys. If you hadn't hit that like button, thumbs up, make sure you do it. And we're going to hit that 300 mark with a little bit more help. Let's see. Here's a good one. When the bite is light, what are some of the techniques you use to get that hook set?
I'll take an example from this weekend. The biggest fish that I caught, I was throwing at him with a short rod, and this fish came off this piece of wood, and he was cruising, and he really wanted it, but he just could not talk himself into doing it. And right before I felt like this fish was going to turn, I dipped that jig to him just a touch and basically set it right there in front of him, and he grabbed it as soon as I did it.
What'd you cast size-wise?
I was casting a 30-second.
A single or?
Single 30-second.
Yeah, slow moving.
Just floating it through there.
Yeah.
And, if I wanted to speed it up, I can do that, but I really like watching those fish turn up when that thing's just slowly falling in there.
Let's see. When long poling, what is your preference for mainline and mono, fluoro or braid?
So I fish 15-pound fluorocarbon. I use Seaguar Red Label. That's just what I've always used. I actually, back when me and Brad used to work together,
I remember it.
I found it on clearance at Walmart, and I probably
Yeah.
bought 30 spools of it. And I used it for 3 years, and I just never switched once I ran out of it.
I actually remember that day. I thought it was crazy. I'm like, what in the world?
I ended up using all of it.
I don't doubt it. Let's see.
That's pretty
Still,
good.
which one?
That one you're cooking.
There you go.
Yeah. So Wednesday and Thursday, I saw some big fish roaming. And I'm going to say out of the 14 fish that I weighed in, I caught 2 of them in open water. Everything else was locked down on structure.
What was the best fishing trip that you went on with me? I think I remember it. I've got mine.
I like going with Brad to pull. Anytime we go fishing, I'm trying to talk him into pulling something. I'm like, let's
Yeah.
pull jigs, let's pull crankbaits.
That
We've got into them a couple times pulling.
I think when we went to Okeechobee, when we went over there,
That was probably the best one.
we went to Okeechobee one day and we just we hammered them. I mean, it's just
That was pretty good.
that was a crazy lake. I'm sure it's that way
It
still.
still is. I was over there probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. Ran a guide trip over there, and it was really good.
I remember that day we even was like, let's just see if we can pan around and not see a fish that we can't catch. And honestly, that whole morning it wasn't even capable of doing that. There was so many fish in that lake.
It was good. It was good. I would definitely say that was the best.
Yeah. Let's come on back. Yeah. Let's see what this one is here.
So really the only time I use 2 jigs is during the summer when I'm casting. And I'm using that top jig more of an indicator as we're fishing the bottom jig, but we will catch 2 fish pretty regularly.
I know Monday, all these days yesterday, I had 3 different
Doubles.
times that we had doubles on.
Mhm.
That's always pretty neat.
That's fun.
Let's see.
You meant Brad.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always got called Chad in the past. Even like in a yearbook one time, I was called Chad Chappell. That was kind of crazy, but for me, as far as that question goes, as far as pulling baits and different things, I like pulling baits a lot of times in the winter, and then it goes back to summer when I want to go out there and relax and kick back and
Turn the fan
on, put the bimini top up, and just cruise around. I still love the troll, and it's still a technique that's very effective in certain lakes and certain times of the year. So I still like doing both. Of course, the game has changed as far as fishing, and some guys hate it, some guys love it, and I'm more I love it and I hate it at the same time. I wouldn't give it up.
Right.
And I love the old ways. When I say I hate it, because I don't hate it, because I use it every day. But I still like the old ways of fishing, and I still like the new ways. I remember the first time I ever seen Hayden.
I remember it.
And he was 12 years old. I mean, he had,
I don't know. I might have been a little older than that.
He was
14 or so.
And we're up by the Warfare Hole, which everybody around the reservoir knows what I'm talking about when we're spider rigging. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And you come by, you and your dad.
Mm-hmm. We were spider rigging in there. You were on a guide trip, I think.
Yeah. So that's goes back way back, but I've seen Hayden spider rig. And I got a thumbs up from that. I like that. But he actually has spider rig.
I almost won a tournament pre-live scope. So I finished third in a Magnolia one year on Barnett spider rigging. and I got beat by Rabbit Rogers and Brad Chappell. So I was ecstatic. I'm
Ooh.
like, hey, the two legends beat me. We're doing pretty good.
I remember that tournament. I'm glad I beat you one time, so I'm
Yeah.
happy to hear that.
That may have been the only time we ever fished against each other.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever really fished. I wanted to kind of fish this last one, but I didn't get it in the books in time. Muddy lakes versus clear lakes. What would you be your color choices on each?
As far as muddy water, I love orange a lot. Orange, black. I fished red a lot on Grenada this spring. That
Mhm.
water was so dirty up there. I felt like that was the only thing they could see. And then clear water, it's natural. Whites and silvers and black. You can mix in a little green in there, like a hunter olive green. Even an iridescent see-through kind of bait seems to work well.
What about black crappie versus white crappie?
I'm going to say it depends on the water condition. Blacks will eat a smaller bait more times than not than a white, but a white will also eat a little bitty jig.
What about? I know you said it about the long rod as far as the line goes. What about cast and rod?
Typically I cast 4-pound monofilament.
Ooh.
Throwing those light jigs, I need light line to help it get down, just be able to help it get a farther cast out of it. And so I fish 4-pound a lot. Nothing particular, just something from Walmart. Probably some strand.
Let's see.
Plain jig or blade. I
Yeah.
fish a road runner from time to time. That blade can really get fish fired up.
There's a great one. How do you distinguish fish that are in the
goodness.
mud?
Oh goodness.
That's a toughie.
Yeah. I don't fish for fish on bottom a lot. I have won one tournament catching fish out of the mud, and that was on Lake Washington probably 4 years ago. Other than that, most of the time I'm looking for a fish that's up and active and ready to eat.
Let's see. What about wind? How do you go about prepping for wind and fishing it during the tournament wise?
It can be tough. I'm actually in the process right now of adding a third bilge pump to my boat. And this one's going to be a 1,500 gallon per hour bilge pump. Because I take so much water over the front, I can't get it pumped out when it really gets rough. And so, not really any way to prep for it. You just got to go put your head down and tell yourself you're doing it.
I recall Hayden several years ago going out fishing, and it was like the nastiest day ever. And you were still in college at the time. And I think you went over by Pelahatchie Bay. And I'm like, this dude is nuts. Why is he going out there? And you're like, I just got to practice. And I'm like, good Lord, man. But,
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's the top water bite on the res. There's Carlos.
He's asking about bass.
I saw my first school last week, so it's there. It's there. We're actually going to bass fish tomorrow a little bit, I think.
Huh.
It's time to try them.
How do you distinguish between bass and crappie since this line's got brought out?
Bass look a lot like crappie. They're just a little longer. They're stretched out a little more. Carpish looking, I would say. They relate to structure a lot, relate to bottom a lot, and they'll group up pretty regularly.
Do they seem a little bit more spooky to you?
Yeah.
That's what I've kind of noticed is they don't wait around for anything to get near them almost.
Yeah, that was something I definitely had to quickly pick up on, was to stay farther and farther away and throw farther and farther, trying to not let them realize what's around them.
Okay, here you go. What size weight do you use above your bait? Does it depend on the depth of water that you're fishing at?
It depends. If it's a super light bite, I'll go down all the way, sometimes to maybe an 1/8 ounce. If the fish are running bad or the fish are deep, I'm going to go up all the way to a 3/4 ounce.
Mm-hmm.
So it varies a lot. Just depends on depth of water, how active the fish are as far as moving around or sitting still, how finicky the bite is.
Here's a When and where is the best way to get on a trip with you?
The easiest way is to send me a message on Facebook. I try to get everybody in the boat with me that I can. I'm sure I probably miss one from time to time.
What do you use more, long pole or casting poles?
It's half and half. He actually fished with me this morning.
I'm
I'm gonna say I use a long pole more, but this time of year I'm probably gonna pick a short pole up more times than not.
trying to catch up with these comments, but
What was the water temp and how deep were they? During the tournament, the water was 60 or 76 to 78 degrees, and the fish were anywhere from 6 to, I caught some whitefish that were 16, 17 foot deep.
mm-hmm. Let's see. Where did black crappie go in the summertime?
I'll find them a lot of times hiding under brush piles. So there'll be 100 smaller crappie on top, and there might be 10 or 12 big blackfish under it. That or maybe a laid down tree. They love a 45-degree angle piece of cover.
Oh, here's a tough one. Do you ever think there will be anything that will have as big an impact as live scope has? Ooh, I can jump on this one even a little bit. I think it's going to improve as far as the quality of your screen and even the speed of the processors and things. It's like starting out with computers. They've gotten better and better. TVs, telephones. I think LiveScope's just going to get cleaner.
Yeah, just fine
and faster.
I don't know. If they ever link the screen to the trolling motor, I don't know. I don't think I would like it if it could follow a fish for you.
Yeah,
that'd be a little too much for me. But I could see him going there.
Jay Carr, where did the 2.5-pound blackfish go on Eagle?
I'm gonna say the flood got a lot of them. I will say last summer I could walk down on my pier during the heat of the day, and fish the shade, and I could catch a lot of little 7 to 9 inch specks. So that kind of gave me some hope that maybe they'll come back around.
Aluminum or fiberglass boat?
I'm gonna say that really depends on what you're fishing, how you're fishing. I started in a 17-foot aluminum boat and fished out of 3 aluminum boats before I got my first fiberglass.
Do you flood your boat for the weight?
I don't. I like to be able to move, and so by filling that thing up with water, I can't move the boat. I try to keep it all pumped out best I can.
Have you ever tried using wax worms or mealworms?
I never have, but I was brim fishing last weekend, and I caught a white crappie on a cricket in about 3 or 4 foot of water, so that was pretty interesting.
Really?
What's your favorite color crappie?
Wesley.
I have a few people who really like fishing with a crappie nibble, so I leave them in my boat. I think I've got a jar of chartreuse in there right now. We'll use them from time to time.
How do you keep good bait presentation in rough water?
Keep your bait farther away from the fish because there is going to be bounce. I mean, you cannot absorb all the bounce.
Do you upsize on your weights as far as the above weight?
Yeah,
and things,
I fish a 3/4 a lot when the wind's blowing. Try to train your arm to absorb as much of the bounce as you can, which is tricky to do, but there is a way you can float it and it'll somewhat stabilize.
32 or 34?
I have both, but typically I'm running the 32. Now, I do like the 34 more in perspective compared to the 32.
How much do you use perspective?
Very, very little. Very little.
I know I've never even put it on my boat.
It's fun to get in shallow water and look around. I mean, you can see everything with it. We brim fish a lot with it.
You said the frog bite has been great. I'm sure you're talking about
I could believe that.
Yeah.
It's definitely time for them to get fired up.
How often do you go to docks?
We don't have a whole lot, but I will say during the summer on Eagle Lake, I do enjoy going out there and shooting docks because there'll be some big wads of fish sitting up under them. And it's good practice. I don't get to shoot docks a whole lot, so I always enjoy when I do get to.
Yeah, I know where some frustrating fish are on the reservoir for ducks.
I do too.
Yeah, we know the
I
same
let them. I
spot.
let them live there.
Yeah, they're going to die there, I believe. Dave is asking for a good place to stay on the res with his boat. Sunset Marina on the northern part of the lake has some cabins up there, and I believe they're on Airbnb. I don't know if you've
It
looked at.
should be.
But really safe area, beautiful sunsets, beautiful view. I would highly suggest that as far as being right
And
there
I
on the
want
water.
to say, there's a couple of Airbnbs on the lower end of the lake.
Mm-hmm. There's one in Twin Harbor where I use a lot.
I think there's one in Pilachi Bay somewhere in there.
So any place on the water is going to be a nice area. All around the lake is all real nice areas. So I think Airbnb, VRBO, and some of these other guys can probably comment. But Sunset Marina has
Definitely,
4 or 5 cabins that have probably the best view in the world on there.
for sure.
Do you prefer open water fish or brush piles or breeder stones?
I fish open water a lot until the fish make me go elsewhere, which usually is March, April, somewhere in there. You're starting to look at cover.
Mm-hmm. How often do you catch crappie under gar?
I see it a good bit. I spent a week on Grenada not too terribly long ago, and I saw several big crappie running under gar. You see an eagle from time to time. I don't know why that crappie wants to sit under the gar, but they definitely will.
Have you noticed crappie with bloody mouths? And is it because of what they're eating?
I've been seeing that the last week or so, and I don't really know. I wish somebody that could answer that for us because I've been stumped on that.
I believe they're hitting them. I believe they are feeding things off the wood that makes them, but none of them's ever answered me. Let's see. There you go.
Key areas.
When breaking down a new body of water, are there key areas that you search for that you're looking for big fish?
Typically, it's the upper end, but some lakes
Mm-hmm.
mix it up. Barnett mixes it up. Lake Fork mixes it up. So it depends. You have to look at the time of year of where those fish should be at in relation to that lake. Um, pre-spawn they're headed in, and then post-spawn they're coming out. All the way into the fall, they're going to be pulling way out, following oxygen and following the bait.
Where do crappie go when the lake comes up fast and high?
They're going to find slack water somewhere. They're not going to sit in current. I feel like they're so curious when that lake jumps up like that. Say if there's buckbrush and stuff like that around, they're going to go in there and check it out and just see, find some cover in there, probably find something to eat.
How do you rig your weights? That's a good.
I use rubber bobber stops. No particular brand or anything, but they seem to hold it the best that I've found so far.
Oh, that's a cool one. Early morning or late afternoon for bigger fish bite?
I've caught a lot of big fish first thing in the morning. I've won some tournaments within the first hour in the mornings, but you can usually always grind out some bigger fish later in the afternoon as that sun really gets up, gets the day going.
Are there any cabins for rent on Eagle Lake?
There's some Airbnb stuff.
Yep.
The Losto used to have. I'm not sure exactly.
I believe it's one called the Catfish Cabins.
There's a few different options over there. And then Showtard's 10 minutes down the road, and I know they have a few options as well.
Yep, Jerry, that's kind of what my thoughts. The mayflies. Gene says mayflies as well, hitting those bugs off stumps.
Mm-hmm. I saw a tree last week upriver that had millions and millions and millions of them, so they're there.
Yeah,
they're there.
I've seen some. I know last week.
Several people saying mayflies.
Yep. Do you think live scope will become more of an underwater camera. I think it already is.
It is an underwater camera.
I mean, it's better than a camera.
They won't
because
call
it's
it
live
that.
motion.
They won't call it that. I always laugh when you read the tournament rules and it says no underwater cameras and we're all using live scope because they're almost hand in hand. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's a cool one. How do you keep your jig from twisting around your weight when dropping it fast?
It's definitely very easy to do. You learn to swing it almost. There's stop super fast and let that thing roll around instead of just slowly slowing it down and letting that jig slide down to the weight. If you stop it quick, it'll flip a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest thing you've learned using FFS?
Fish. I'm gonna say fish for active fish. I'm gonna say that's probably. I feel like so many people get caught up fishing for non-active fish that aren't interested in feeding. I'm always looking for active fish.
Fresh fish.
Yeah, fresh fish.
I'd
say that's probably one of the bigger.
I don't know. One thing I think I've learned with FFS live scope, let's just say, is there a lot of different types of fish under the water all over the place.
For sure.
There's a lot of life in the bodies of water that I've seen the fish. It's just from the shad, from the gar to the catfish to brim.
Everything.
It's just a lot of live creatures under the water that stirring around. Yeah. It's like busy cities almost. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool.
It scares me every now and then. You see a fish that's 10 or 15 feet swim by, and you don't really know what it is.
Right.
I don't swim in fresh water anymore. I will say that.
Really?
Nope.
You're kidding me?
No, I'm done.
You're done?
I've seen enough.
Huh. Have you seen, I saw last week on the reservoir probably about a 12-foot gator, and I got up to it and was able to see it on live scope.
I've chased them before for a little ways, just watching them swim and go up and down.
That would be pretty good practice if you could follow it out. Them things
they can swim.
They can go.
They can go.
Do you ever use minnows?
I do from time to time. Fish start getting picky on what they want to eat. You can show them what they eat.
Have you ever fished Talquin? And we're in Florida.
I've never been to Talquin. Heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, me too. Right now we're at 334 likes. We're going to try to hit that 350 mark. So, guys, if you hadn't hit that like button, make sure you do that for us. Special thanks for doing today's bite show for me every week for Bobby Garland Baits. Been a supporter of mine for years. Great baits and catches a lot of fish, I guarantee it. What's the biggest crappie that you've caught?
So I caught a 19.5-inch long fish that weighed 394 certified 3 years ago.
Where was that?
Can't say.
Can't say. Okay.
It was, and I really wish I would have submitted it. I caught it out of a little bitty lake. I tried to keep it super quiet. I wish I would have done it though. It was a state record. Magnolia hybrid. It was a state stocked fish from 2014, 15, somewhere in there. Was the last year that they had stocked them. And I just happened to run across a lake that had, a few of these fish in it.
Okay, well, I'm going to answer this one here too. Well, what about publicly known fish? What's the biggest you caught in a tournament setting?
384. And that came out of Barnett.
Yeah.
The only 3-pounder I've ever caught out of it.
What?
Yep.
You're kidding me.
I've caught one.
Huh. I learned something new tonight. I'm surprised.
After that would be Grenada. I caught a 350. 2022.
Explain TVG and how you use it.
I'm not really sure. I know it's a time varied gain, but I don't really know exactly what that is. I've never really played with it much.
Solo fishing, having issues keeping wave fish healthy. Any tips as far as the boat goes?
I'm going to say the biggest thing is keeping your water clean and cool and keeping that fish upright. Don't let him get to turning on his side. He will quickly go if he gets rolled over on his belly.
Use those fish clips and all that?
Yeah, use a fin clip. About an ounce and a half of weight will usually hold a bigger fish down. Sometimes you have to put 2 on them just to make sure they stay upright. Keeps some water flowing. Well, keeps some oxygen flowing. I just run a bubbler. I don't run my pumps all day, just to conserve battery. I run tap water, treat it with G juice, put a little ice in there, knock temperature down a touch.
Do you actually put a thermometer in there and
I
get
have
the
a laser
temperature?
thermometer. You can shoot it if you want to. Don't really play with temperature a lot until you really get into the dog days of summer. You kind of have to watch it. You don't want to shock them when you put them in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Where's Delco? Let's
Right
see.
there. Not many people know where that fish came from. Yeah, it was good when it was good.
Where do you see the biggest crappie that you haven't caught?
I saw a 4-pound fish in Barnett this spring. Without a doubt, this fish was 19 to 20 inches long. I felt like, and being pre-spawn, it should have done it. I've seen 4-pound crappie. I feel like that I could say for sure were that. 2 of them in Barnett. No, 2 of them in Grenada. One of them in Barnett, and one of them I broke off 2 days after I caught the 394. Yeah.
Excluding this bone, what part of the lake do you find the larger crappie living?
White crappie, I tend to find the biggest ones deep. Like they're going to be sitting out deeper, closer to, maybe a channel or whatever it is. Black crappie, they'll live shallow a lot of the year. You can find them shallow even up into the dog days of summer, July, early August. You can catch them fish in 2 to 5 foot of water.
I know that's one of the things that goes back to what we've got to learn with live scope for myself anyway, is how many depths that these fish actually live in throughout the year. I mean, my old way of thinking was, hey, we need to really just fish that one break line from 10 to 15 foot or whatever. And now with live scope, you can literally, they'll surprise you sometimes how shallow they'll be at. And another thing that's kind of surprised me too is how much these fish mix with bluegill and catfish, and they'll be all in the same vicinity together. And it's almost like, why would they be down there with all the catfish beside them?
Right.
Or why all the bluegill? And I would never expect that until you actually
See it.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. Well, guys, man, we had 365. Thank you for everybody joining in tonight. And, Hayden's been on there, I don't know how many times now, and he's going to be back on here again, I know.
Yeah.
And definitely appreciate his time and all you guys tuning in tonight. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. And good way to get a reach of Hayden Jeffries is by
Facebook Messenger.
He's on Facebook all over it. Check him out. You ever want to come to Barnett, make sure you look him up. And,
book a day with Brad, book a day with me.
Hey, we'll both do it. We have a good time out there.
Oh, yeah.
But until next week, Brad Chapel Hollow, Hayden Jeffries out.
Yeah, we'll see y'all.
Bingo.